From Ticker, you're watching She's the Boss. Here's Jules Brooke.
Hi and welcome to She's the Boss. This show is all about female founders and women doing amazing things in business. And I've got two fabulous guests today. I know both of them personally. They are both kicking goals all over the place. We have Christie, who's the founder of The Time Stylers. And she has also just released a new book, which is out today, which we're going to talk to her about. And Katrina McCarter, who is the guru of marketing to mums. She's a marketing strategist. She's also written a couple of books. In fact, both of them have written multiple books, but I'll be asking them all about it. So welcome, Katrina and Kate.
Thanks very much for having us, Jules.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you on. Now, you have both had incredible careers, and I have watched you flip and pivot and start new businesses over the years. So I'll start with Katrina. Katrina, can you tell me what you're doing these days and why you're doing it?
Yeah, look, absolutely, Jules. Firstly, thanks very much for having me on the show. I am currently got two businesses. So right. My first business, and I guess what I'm best known for, is marketing to mums. And that's where I'm working with businesses from startups right through to corporates in helping them attract more mothers and families to their businesses. But the other thing that I do is my Katrina McCarter brand, and that's where I do a lot of professional speaking. Right. I actually digital marketing to corporates, but I also run an out loud marketing partnerships program, and that's all about teaching entrepreneurs how to identify and secure their own marketing partnerships to grow their businesses.
Wow, that is huge. That's just so many different things. I don't think I had realised you were doing quite so much. Now, before we go any further though, let's talk about why marketing to mums is important, because having worked in that space myself, I know the importance, but all our readers, all our viewers might not. So can you explain a little bit about the value that marketing to mums can bring?
Oh, look, absolutely. There are 6.2 million mums here in Australia. Every year, about 140,000 women become mothers for the first time. And right. Collectively, these women are responsible for $132 billion in spending every year. So they're incredibly economically powerful. But the other thing to know about them is that they're really influential. When women become mothers, they are 8 times more likely to be talking about brands. So you want to make sure that they're saying really favourable things about your business.
And anecdotally, I know that. Like, there's so many mums groups and on Facebook and things like that, and you can see the power of these women, particularly if they recommend or diss something that they don't like. So, Kate, let's move on to you. You've had an amazing career in the time I've known you, and I know you've done lots of interesting things before that, which we will get into in the next section. But right now, I'd like to know, what are you doing right now and why are you doing it?
So my main brand is Time Stylers. So yep. I am a time management specialist. I work with high-performing individuals and teams and organisations to help them invest their time for their greatest possible success, to deal with issues that create organisational drag and which actually sort of slow high performers down from reaching and achieving their absolute greatest potential.
Right, and I'm fascinated to know this. So why did you even get into this? Because I know your first book was about saving, was it 30 hours a month?
Yes.
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, to think that there is time people are wasting that they could use. So how did you get into this in the first place?
Oh, look, I was one of the generation of women who was told that I could have it all, and I genuinely believed it.
Yes.
And it worked really, really, really well for me until I had kids. And then the wheels started to wobble, and I had this amazing corporate career. I was flying up that career ladder, and I had 3 babies in 3.5 years, which was entirely...
That's keen.
I should have worked out what was happening at least after number 2, but there we were.
Wow.
And I felt that I'd sort of placed myself or backed myself into a corner where I could either have a brilliant career or be a brilliant mum. And at the time, I felt that I couldn't be both. And that's so common for many, many of my clients. What I did was I made the choice to opt out of my career because I chose my children. I couldn't really give them back. But it was the wrong decision because what the timeout gave me was the opportunity to reframe my relationship with time and to realize that I didn't need to have it all. I didn't need to do it all, but I could ask. And if I actually reframed my time, I could have everything I did want. And so that's what got me into time styling, is to make sure that no one else ever feels what I felt, that I don't want anyone, man or woman, to feel that they have to choose between two things they love for want of time. So my job is to get you that.
Yeah, no, I think you probably are perfectly positioned, having had 3 children in 3.5 years, to know how precious time is and how it can be manipulated. And so have you sort of moved into this space and got this huge passion around it? Have you seen what it can do for people?
Oh, absolutely. Like Katrina, I do a lot of speaking. Yep. I have 4 books, and 4. I'm constantly getting, and I'm constantly getting that feedback from my audiences and my clients that, you know, this stuff is life-changing. If you need to invest some time to reframe how you spend your time, but once you have control of your time, you are already extraordinary, but it's going to make you unstoppable. And there's nothing more liberating.
So what sort of things are people doing with their time that they're wasting it? I'll just give us a couple of examples where people could claw back some more me first time, which we'll talk about in a minute. But can you tell me the sorts of things that people are doing where they're wasting time, where they could actually be, you know, using it more productively?
Sure. Well, at work, the most common one is multitasking. And that could be as simple as having your email alerts on when you're trying to do some work. It could be having multiple screens open. It could be toggling between various reports. It could be every single time you're interrupted. So when we multitask, our productivity goes down by up to 40%.
Blimey.
So if you're,
and we all as women think it's fantastic to multitask.
I know. If you're juggling multiple things at once all day, every day, then at best, you're only ever working to 60% of your productivity. So that's a no-brainer.
Right. So Katrina, now back to you. Can you tell me, I had this great question and I've forgotten what it was going to be, but let me think. It's around, I'm really interested in this whole mum space and how you fell into it and why. The why of it is probably of more interest. And I know that your other businesses have been in this space as well. So what is your big, hairy, audacious why as to why you do what you do?
Yeah, look, great question, Jules. Look, I've been talking to mums, I think, for about 19 years. So my background is sales and marketing. I've worked in the grocery industry in my corporate career, like Kate, really climbing the ladder, you know, heading to great things. And then I had children as well, and I actually took a career break of 5 years and when I became a mother, and I really disliked the way society spoke to me and the way brands spoke to me. I was no longer this multifaceted woman. I was quite, you know, I felt like I was
into being a mum, and that's it.
Just being a mum, and I was only spoken to as a mother, and there was so much more to me that I had to offer that just wasn't being reflected or spoken to, and I really, really struggled with that. And in 2011, I actually launched my first business, and that was an online shopping website for mums, and I grew that to a community of 150,000 mums. And what I saw, I did this research survey where I was hoping to get the thoughts of about 300 or 400 women, and I actually more than 1,800 mums respond because they wanted to be heard. And their big message was, well, our big finding was that 63% of Australian mums believe that businesses and brands don't understand them. And I was like, oh, I'm not alone. But the other thing I really noticed in my business was that brands were really struggling to see how to convert mums to a sale. So I'd get their copy and their images and I'd go, this is just not going to fly with my audience. And so there was this real gap in the market. And I went, you know what, I'm going in there to fill that because it will be a win for mums because we'll improve the way they're being, you know, respected, reflected in communications, and brands will win because there's actually a huge financial opportunity for them. So my big goal is I want to change the way we value women and mothers in society. I want to do that globally.
I love a big goal.
Every year. Yeah, and I'm really keen to see what dent I can make on that.
And I reckon you've already started making a big dent. And what a lot of people at home might not realise, the power of mums and mum power, is all those advertising agencies and marketing agencies out there used to think that if you were doing aftershave or you were doing shaving cream for blokes, that you would advertise those to blokes. But the actual reality is the guys aren't the ones going to the supermarket. They're not making those purchasing decisions. So over time, people and those big brands have really realised how huge the potential is if they can convert these mums. So you're absolutely spot on. Now, we've got to talk about what's happening right now in the world. Well, certainly in Australia, about us all being isolated, having to move home. Now, both of you have talked about being speakers, and that you're consulting. I'm really interested to know how you're pivoting or how you're dealing with what's going on at the moment. Kate, have you got some insights into what you're doing?
Yeah, so now I guess in terms of so many people being forced to work from home and also homeschooling, having their kids at home, I'm doing a lot of work with my clients with online training, online webinars, online coaching for their people in terms of how to transition to work from home and be really productive in that environment, and how to then juggle your kids as well at the same time, and also really how to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off. We're all in this, we're all facing this. I've got a lot of my really high powered women clients who are ringing me saying, how do I
structure my day?
That I'm here and I'm efficient and I'm getting all this great work done. And you know what you need to understand is your boss is in the same position and their boss is in the same position.
Yeah.
So it's about, you know, a lot of communication, and so I'm very much transitioning that sort of work online. I do most of my coaching and a fair bit of my training online anyway, so that hasn't been an issue for me. Obviously, all of the big events have been postponed until post-COVID, and that's okay, because I think when we come out of COVID, we're going to be working very differently anyway. I agree,
and I think you've really pivoted well to be able to use all that online training that you've been doing anyway. But I can totally see how there is a need now for all sorts of people, whether they're small business or work in corporate, to understand how to structure their day to get the most out of it. I know one of my close friends heads up a big organisation and has about 30 or 40 staff, and she's really struggling with trying to manage them online as well. So there's all sorts of new skills that people are going to learn through this too. What about you, Katrina? How are you going with doing everything online and being isolated and from home, other than obviously doing your TV interviews from home?
Well, look, I actually work from home anyway. So for me, in that sense, it's business as usual. What is not business as usual is the circumstances we're in and my clients and the space that they're in.
And the pain they're feeling.
Yeah, look, a lot of my clients are actually in temporary closures at the moment. So that is really very significant for them. So there's three things that I'm working with them. Firstly, it's mindset, their own mindset, because it's the decisions that they're making over the next few weeks that are really going to determine how they come out of this.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
First and foremost, it's their mindset. It's their mindset of their team that they might have had to stand down. It's keeping them engaged, but it's also the changing mindset of mothers. And I'm just about to start a new study having a look at how mums' behaviours are changing through this, because I think that's going to be really interesting in coming out of it. The second area I'm working with them on is money. I want them to have really clear understanding in terms of their money position and their income stream, so that they can make really informed decisions. And the third area I'm looking at is, of course, marketing. This is not the time to go dark. This is almost gift of time that they are being given, where they can go really deep in understanding and identifying what's the most profitable segment of the mum market for them to be attracting, and realigning their strategy there. And that's really, once I've got them through the mindset, they've been thoroughly briefed with their accountant, let's now get stuck into that marketing strategy. And that's really what I'm working on now, those 3 M's.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, one of the things, obviously, with my background in PR, I'm kind of saying to people is now is not the time to hide in a little corner and not be found, because the people that are reaching out and the people that are building a bit of profile and working hard to keep people remembering them are the ones that when we come out of this, people are going to be going, oh, that's right, I saw that person online or on social media or whatever. And they'll reach out to them that way, I think. Thank you so much, girls. Now, just hold on a minute. We're going to have a... Yeah, no, sorry, Kate, go on.
So I completely agree with what Katrina's saying there in terms of now's the perfect time to be focusing on this stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing is now is the perfect time to be building your new products, your audacious, delivering on your audacious goals for the future. I'm working with a lot of my clients around what is the next 6 months, what's the next 12 months. Use this time, invest this time really, really well to work on some of these awesome goals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm seeing people thinking about writing books and running courses and taking what they're doing offline and bringing it online. There are lots and lots of opportunities as well. I understand that it's been very shocking for a lot of people. And I've been saying to people in my own groups, look, just give yourself 2 or 3 days to kind of let this sink in and recover, and don't feel bad if you're not doing much. But ultimately, make a date or a time, set a time to go, right, I'm waking up in the morning and I'm getting on with things that I want to do. And there's a absolute stack of people out there that have been thinking about setting up their own business, and they've got this opportunity now to kind of put some strategy behind it and work out if they can actually do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, girls, we're going to take a little break just for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to come back, and I want you to take us through your actual career journey. I'm really interested to know what happens when you came out of uni or school or whatever it was you did first that got you to where you are now, and maybe some of the big, exciting, great things that have happened along the way, and I'm sure you've also had some things that haven't been so great and what we've learned from them. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more. From Ticker, you're watching She's the Boss. Here's Jules Brooke.
Welcome back to She's the Boss. On the show today, I have the amazing Kate Christie, who's the Times, I keep saying the Time Styler, her business is actually Time Stylers, and Katrina McCarter, who has written books and specialises in marketing to mums. Now, welcome back, girls. I'm really interested to know about your journey, because I think there's a lot of people that would be thinking about setting up their own business, and they would like to know how it's done, really, like the journey that happens and the wiggly squiggly line that's never like that, which I keep seeing on LinkedIn and Facebook as a little meme. So let's start with you, Kate. Can you tell us where you started out and how you've ended up doing what you're doing?
Sure. So I worked for many years as a lawyer and then transitioned into an operational role as a senior executive. It's
right, in
really
a law
funny.
firm. Was this a big end kind of law firm?
Yeah, big end law firm, and then moved into corporate and worked as an in-house lawyer at Telstra for a number of years.
Oh, wow, right.
At Telstra, transitioned into an operational role and worked as a senior executive there in various roles for a number of years. And
Wow.
interestingly, when I was at school, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a writer.
Right.
And the advice I got at the time was go and get the best degree that you can, and then approach, the age or someone like that for an internship. So I, very compliant, did all of that, got my law degree, and then I thought, well, I really should just do my articles and become a qualified lawyer because I've done the degree, and then I'll go to journalism. So I did that, and then I got sort of stuck in this sort of legal role for forever long, and absolutely hated every second of it.
Oh no!
And
So it wasn't something that you loved and felt challenged by. It was all
it was just, I found being a lawyer, everything is contentious.
Right.
There's no sort of happiness in there.
True.
It was very challenging. Absolutely, it was challenging and sometimes exciting, but more often just phenomenally stressful.
Right.
So,
right. And very long hours, I would imagine, as well.
incredibly long hours, and I wanted to start a family, which is why I transitioned into the corporate world, because at the time the prospect of being a woman lawyer working with children just seemed so overwhelming to me.
Right.
I just thought I cannot be a mum in this environment.
So are you sort of in your 20s here or early 30s? How long have you been working by that stage?
Yeah, so late 20s. So I'd been working probably 10 years, 8 years by that stage. So transitioned into a corporate role, eventually got pregnant with my first child, and
followed very quickly by 2 more.
The dominoes really fell like a poop
Ton
on
of
my
bricks,
head.
I imagine.
And really sort of managed to juggle from there. And I tried everything. I tried part-time, I tried flexible, I tried working from home. I used to drive home at one stage and get to the creche at lunchtime to feed my son and then put him to sleep at creche and go home.
Oh my God.
Is insane.
Yeah.
And eventually the juggle just got too much. And I distinctly remember the day I was, being a superwoman and a super mum, I decided to drop my prepping at school and got their beautiful black suit, red lipstick, looked $1 million, and it was cupcake day. And Katrina knows this story. She's and I didn't have any cupcakes. I missed that memo. And
I was a bit like that as a mum, with all the mothers doing all the baking for the baking stands, and you're like, I haven't got time.
I just didn't even, it wasn't even on my radar.
Right.
So I dropped the sterile at school, drove to work, just thinking about the 25 years of cupcake therapy I'm going to need. Walked into my first meeting of the day, and everyone around the boardroom table went quiet, and they all looked at their watches. And then they all looked at me, and I was the only member of the executive leadership team who didn't have a full-time wife.
Right, of course. Yes, I see that with my brothers all the time, going, you've all got wives that help you do things.
That's it. And so I needed a wife.
Yeah.
So I opted out of my career to be a full-time mum. 4 minutes later, I was climbing the walls. And so that's when I started my first business. And it was an online portal connecting busy professionals, predominantly women, predominantly mums, as Katrina says. We're the consumers, we're making the decisions. And it was a portal connecting busy families with babysitters, nannies, cleaners, housekeepers, and so forth. And I ran that business for a number of years. And what it did was it gave me a real insight into the mindset of professional women. And I realised that it wasn't just me who was going through this angst with the juggle and the mother's guilt and the work guilt and the judgment. And so I decided to write a book about it. And so my first book was called Me Time. And it really just struck a chord. It really resonated with a lot of women around the world who were trying to manage that juggle. It became a #1 bestseller. And from there, thank you. And from there, everything transitioned. And I then started focusing more and more on time. And at that point in time, I was teaching people time management, started getting invitations to come and speak about the book. And it really culminated and rolled from there. And I now have 4 books. I speak globally, invited by some of the most incredible companies around the world to educate their people and their audiences on what I say now is the most important thing, which is smart time investment. We don't manage our time. We can't manage our time. We need to think about our time the way we think about our money, as an enormously precious resource that needs to be invested for the greatest possible return. And that's my focus now. And I love it. I love it.
That's great. And of course, you know, having 3 children in 3 years or 3.5 years is incredibly overwhelming. But look what it's done for you, really, I guess, in some ways, because you never would have probably cared about managing your time as much if you hadn't had all 3 of them.
Well, that was the thing. And I having had all 3 of them, all of a sudden I didn't even have the time to think about how to manage my time.
No.
But what at that point in time was probably my lowest point from a career perspective that day I walked into that meeting was, you know, a real low point in my career.
But your idea of setting up the website for babysitting and things like that, I mean, I remember using it back in those days as well. It was just really, the timing was just perfect, and that whole mumpreneur wave was starting around that time as well. And I remember when women were kind of, and I was one, I'd been working in agencies, and I just thought, I cannot keep this job. Like, I just can't. You know, I'd say I have to go and pick up the kids, and they'd be going, it's only 5:15, why are you heading off? And you've got to get to childcare before 6. And it was a movement, I think, that really kind of changed everything. So,
and to be honest, not enough has changed in terms of, we all, you know, companies that talk about work-life balance, which seriously drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But flexibility and, you know, we can all kind of manage this together, and let's promote our women and let's get pay equity, and not enough has changed. So
no, but now the world has suddenly pressed pause. I think it might be very interesting coming out of this coronavirus isolation.
At the moment, big corporates are bleeding their female talent, and we are going and we're starting up really awesome businesses because we have a lot of IP, we've got a lot of intelligence, we have enormous networks. And we are kind of taking over the small business world. And I think at the moment, this is an opportunity for big business to say, we need to do this really differently, really quickly, because we are going to continue.
That would be the most wonderful outcome out of all of this, I have to say. So now, Katrina, your turn. Can you tell me, when I first met you, you were running your daily deal site for mums. But where did you start before that? Because that was huge by the time I met you. Like you said, 150,000 or 300,000 or something enormous in terms of the numbers. What did you do for school even? I mean, did you go to uni, or did you decide to get straight into work? What was your background?
Yeah. Look, I started life over in Perth, grew up in Perth with a single mum, and I used to get on the bus every day and I'd tell my bus driver that I was going to be a stockbroker. So every single day I'd get on and talk about this wheeling and dealing that I was going to be doing. Right. Coincidentally, I actually had to take a bus back in Perth in my 30s, and I got on, paid my money, and the guy behind in the driver's seat said, so you're a stockbroker?
No.
And it was,
Same
it was actually, he was still driving buses, and I must have chewed his ear off because he actually remembered, he recognised me as a grown person now and actually asked if I was a stockbroker. So I went off to uni. How amazing
is that? I love that.
Yeah. It was wonderful. So I went off to uni. I did a business degree and then went straight into an MBA actually got
impressive.
Got to travel and study in Chiang Mai for a while as well, in Thailand, which was fun. But the advice I was always given by my marketing lecturers was always go and spend 2 years in sales first, so you can see how the marketing campaigns actually transition.
So isn't that a clever lecturer? That's great advice. I wish most people would do that and find out how hard it is to do the sales too.
Well, that's actually what I did. So I went off and got a job with Mars Pet Care, which is Pal and Whiskers, all the pet care brands.
Right.
And I was out visiting the little IGAs and the Coles stores all over Victoria, and I did that for a couple of years. And then I ended up over at Arnott's Biscuits, actually running their Victorian sales team. So I had a team of about 60.
Out of WA still?
No, I was over in Melbourne.
Right.
Over in Melbourne. So I left for Melbourne 3 weeks after finishing high school. Bright lights, big city. I love the excitement of lots of people. So, and my dad was also based over here. So I moved to Melbourne at that time. So I was out on the road all over Victoria then. I then moved over to Arnott's and ran a sales team.
Wow.
I then got poached. Yeah, I then actually got poached back to Mars Pet Care, and I started running supermarket accounts.
Right.
And by the time I left, I was actually running the Coles account. So that was about $150 million a year business
Big.
For them. And I was looking after, there was about 660 stores around Australia that I was looking after business with, so I was negotiating shelf space, deals,
So this
big
is
buy.
all pre-kids, and what sort of age are you there again? Is it in your 20s or?
I'm in my 20s, so by my late 20s, I was doing this, and then
Right.
I had my first child, and that
Changes
was
everything.
a real shock to me because I was in such control at work. I absolutely knew everything that I was doing, and along came Lucy, and she hardly slept, and I was just
gosh.
like, what the hell is going on? But I'm also an all-in person, so I really struggled in that first year of trying to get back to work. So I was back within 4 months. I was the first one on the childcare centre opening, literally with ready to drop my child off. I was the last one into the office.
Right.
I was the first one to leave the office and the last parent to pick up their child. And I'd get home with enough time to give her a quick bath, feed her, and put her to bed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this so isn't the gig that I want. And my husband said to me, hey, do you want to have a year off? And let's go back over to Perth. He had bought a boat.
Yeah.
He had negotiated a 5-day load over 4 days, and he thought he was going to spend a day a week off fishing off the back of Rottnest on the boat. And so I went,
Nice.
yeah, look, let's do it. And we jumped in, went back to Perth, slowed things right down. Along came another 2 kids, and, the boat started collecting a lot of cobwebs.
Three of us with 3 kids. We know what it's like being a mum, that's for sure.
Absolutely. But I really struggled with that transition into, as I said, how society saw me and spoke to me as well. I was no longer what I thought was this really important corporate person. And I then really wanted to get back to work, but there was no grocery industry in Perth, and I had to recreate myself. And it was actually, I used to play cards every few Saturday nights with my Greek girlfriends, and you had to rock up in your trackies, bring along your bag of mixed lollies, and we'd play a card game called Joe. Right. And we'd sit around and natter till about 1 a.m. And one time they were all talking about these deals that they were picking up. I had no idea what they were talking about, and what it was the introduction of Groupon and Scoopon.
Yeah.
And I had a look at it over a couple of months and went, you know what? No one is catering for the family market. I have always wanted to launch a business. I'm going to do that. My
Very
big problem.
Clever. Big gap in the market at that stage.
A big opportunity, but I had no money and no professional contacts in Perth. Everyone knew me as a mum in the park. So I'm out there announcing that I'm going to launch this business, and everyone's like, okay.
So how do you do it? How do you launch a business? I mean, this is classic for any of the women watching. How do you launch a business if you've got no money and you've got no contacts?
A lot of bravado. First up, I had to have a lot of fairly uncomfortable coffees with guys on St. George's Terrace pitching my business idea, and they were really comfortable investing on the stock market.
Right.
But doing something on the internet, this was back in 2011, was still somewhat new.
Yeah.
And so it took me about 4 months to get 4 investors on board, which was enough for me to set up and get going.
But you managed to get investors, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well, look, initially I will say it was stop-start. I went out and had some really embarrassing coffees, red-faced coffees going, I really don't know how to pitch, but I had a go. I was sales background.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't working for me. So I went, look, I'm really all into this. I've got a few $1,000. I'm going to engage this IT consultant who was a dad at the school that one of my kids was at. And I brought him in, and he just went, this is awesome.
Yeah,
I want to invest. Came in, and then he bought a business partner, and so having 2 shareholders at that stage just gave me enough kind of confidence to go off and re-pitch. So I went off and I secured another 2 shareholders, and within 6 months I launched that business.
And you know, sorry, just to interrupt you, one of the things that people say is great that you did early on, and I think that that's a lesson people can learn from, is to get a digitally savvy person or somebody who understands IT to partner with you in some way.
Oh, look, I knew that if I was going to launch an e-commerce site, I needed to have someone who had the tech smarts. That certainly is my area of expertise. And my kids still absolutely marvel when I come up with my iPhone and ask them how to do something. They cannot believe that I ran a successful e-commerce business for 5 years.
And it was wildly successful. I mean, it really grew and grew, didn't it?
It did, but I never spent more than $300 a month on advertising. So I really...
Where were you advertising for $300 a month? Is that social?
I did some in social. Initially, I made a huge lot of mistakes and I invested in print, and I may as well have thrown my money out the window.
Right.
So I learned a lot along the way. But yeah, look, in my last 18 months of having that business, I didn't spend anything on advertising. I was completely all in for marketing partnerships. And I really believe if any of your listeners are in early stage, invest heavily in collaborating with other people who are not in competition with you but share the same ideal customer as you do.
And when you talk about collaborating, what do you mean? Like, how can people leverage that? So can you explain how that would work?
Absolutely. I see a marketing partnership as two or more parties coming together for mutual benefits.
Yep.
And they can be completely different mutual benefits for each party. But how I started with my first business was I got together with other women who were running online mum communities as well. And we'd do a joint competition together.
Right,
and
clever.
as part of that, they'd have to sign up to both of our newsletters. So it allowed me to grow and acquire a lot more new members to my business without having to invest in advertising.
Really clever, yeah.
Yeah, and because I had I was really great with my sales background at being able to secure a prize sponsor, that it allowed me, and I was good at organising stuff. I could work with much bigger businesses than mine, because all they'd have to do would go out and advertise the competition, but I'd do all the behind the scene work. I'd get the competition going. I'd organise the graphics. I'd get the prize sponsor, and that really benefited my business and allowed me to grow it really quickly. But I've now learnt to apply those marketing partnerships into all areas of my business. So I've had all sorts of brands sponsor my books or my podcast, referral partnerships, and now I teach other people how to do them.
Right. Now we're just going to take a little break. I really would love to hear, because you've now taken us to your end of your daily deal site. I'd love to know what was the transition into, which I can kind of almost see, but I'd love you to explain it. But listen, we're going to take a quick break, then we'll come back, and then I'd love you to offer some tips to any mums and tell us any stories, any funny stories that have happened in your business. So hang tight, everyone. We'll be back in a minute or two.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more. From Ticker, you're watching She's the Boss. Here's Jules Brooke.
Welcome back to She's the Boss. I am today interviewing Christie and Katrina McCarter. Now, just before the break, Katrina was telling us about her journey, and I had to cut it short, so I'd love for you to just be able to join the dots for us from when you had your big daily deal site through to where you are now, and then I've got a great question for both of you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, I just kept seeing this growing new opportunity coming in the market, and that was this growing dissatisfaction between mums and how they were being communicated with, and brands that were really struggling to work out how to get mums to convert to a sale. Yeah, so for me, it just seemed like a natural progression. And I was increasingly being approached by a lot of business owners who were predominantly mums saying, can you coach me? So I was doing a lot of consulting anyway on the side. And I went, you know what? I think this is a business in
thing.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And then you did an amazing
I
amount of research, didn't you, as
I
well,
think
for the
that's a
book?
typical experience too, Jules, that you find a lot of women or a lot of small businesses, their first business will maybe be successful or quite successful, but it's when you transition into that second business and things really, really take
Yes.
off. And I think because you've had the experience, you've got networks, you've felt your way through the market, and you can sort of understand what you did wrong, what you did right, but you start to see more opportunities, and it's
Yes.
the second business that goes absolutely gangbusters.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. My next question to you, which leads me perfectly, there's a perfect segue from that, is if you were to go back now to yourself when you first started your business, what sort of tips have you learned along your way that you wish you had been told when you were starting out? And we'll start with you, Kate. Can you give us some more tips?
Sure. So I think that, look, firstly, I wouldn't change my journey at all, because everything I learned along the way has built into what my business is now. So I
Nice.
wouldn't change the journey in one way. What I would say is, for anyone contemplating going into business or looking to pivot, I would just back yourself.
Yeah.
Take the leap, take the risk. Entrepreneurs are risk takers, but the gains that you can get are absolutely phenomenal. So don't hold back. Do a lot of research. So understand what your potential idea or product or service is going to be. Invest your time in understanding your customer and the niche that you're going to be
Great
servicing.
advice.
What are their problems? How can you help them? Put yourself completely in their place. And I think that's why Time Stylers work so well, because I knew my customers so well from my first business, Babysitters and More.
Yeah.
I knew this woman who was working really, really hard and trying to manage her family. I knew her juggles. I knew her pain points. She'd already confided in me that, one of her children was being bullied at school, or another children had a nut allergy or whatever, because I'd been trying to find her a nanny. So I knew so much about target client.
Which is, I think, partly why the second business works so well, because the first business, you normally do spend a lot of time really understanding your customers, and then you can often see the gap or the bit that's actually not supporting them, and you can move into that space.
And they'll also tell you what the gap is. So at that point in time, I had these women saying to me, how do I manage this? Or how do I become more productive at work? Or how do I deal with interruptions and procrastination? And I had the answers for them, and they kept saying to me, can you write a book about this?
That's changed my life.
Yeah, that's it. I had so many women saying, oh my God, this has changed my life. And I was like, really? And I just thought it was new stuff. But ultimately, it was my IP. And it took me a while to realize that I had this knowledge bank, I had this source of information. And so the other bit of advice I'd give you is really understand what you're good at, understand what your knowledge is, understand what your intellectual property is, because no one has the same skill set as you or the same suite of experiences as you. No one has the same network as you. And so you can really leverage all of that and bring that into your business.
That's a really, really good point. Thank you very much for that. Now, Katrina, if somebody had said to you on day one when you were setting up your first business, some of the things that you now know, I've said this so badly, but you know what I mean. So what I'm saying is,
I know what you mean.
What advice would you give people that are setting out now that you wish you'd been told?
Yeah, look, I would actually say really protect your energy. Ignore the naysayers. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with really positive, supportive people. When you're starting out, it's so important that the people around you are really supportive of what you do. I would also negotiate terms with your partner. It's really hard if you're starting something off at home and you're still expected to still maintain your full-time role as primary carer as well.
Then it's not going to work.
I think negotiating that up front can really help. The other thing I'd say is I wish I got a business coach earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't get a business coach until my second business, and to me they have been invaluable. I've had multiple business coaches, all for different specialties, and I really would have loved that guidance in my first business. So get yourself a coach.
I agree.
Also, have an accountability team. So I actually operate with an accountability team, and they keep me on track.
So what do you mean by that? What's an accountability team? Because I know what my understanding of it is, but how would you describe it?
So they are three absolutely fantastic women, one of who happens to be on the screen with me here today, that I meet with on a monthly basis. They know the ins and outs of my business, and it's a safe space for me to go to and say, okay, I've got this particular challenge. What would you do? Or how should I deal with this? Or it might be, I've got this particular idea. What do you think about this pivot that I'm considering?
It's a really difference, doesn't it? Just to have women that you trust, because we're all in this together and it is slightly different for women, and then ideally people that are also kind of at the same level as you, and or maybe a little bit above you, that can guide you, offer you advice, you can bounce ideas off them. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. So I can't underestimate the value of that. So we all commit to what we're going to do in between our sessions, and you want to make a bet that we'll be following up on you during a few weeks and checking in as you're progressing with that. That makes an enormous difference. So that's something else that I would be suggesting. And the last thing I would be saying is invest in your network and collaborate. It is the fastest way, lowest cost way to grow your business. So really explore marketing partnerships as well.
Yeah, and I would also add to that, don't be intimidated by people that are maybe running big groups, because you often think, oh my goodness, I can't really approach them. What do I have to offer? But what you have is probably something that they want. So don't, and also, I find a lot of women kind of going, oh, I don't know whether I should just contact them completely out of the blue. I would say yes. I mean, if for most of us, I'm sure, if a woman approaches us and says, look, I've got this business idea, I thought we could do something together, whether you decide to or not, you're never going to be offended by that person suggesting it. So there is no downside that I can see to reaching out to other women, really. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I live by the hashtag. Be bold.
Yeah, great hashtag. What about you, Kate? Have you collaborated a lot?
Oh, absolutely. And probably more and more as I become established and comfortable in my business. And part of the accountability group that Katrina and I are in is we brainstorm these sort of opportunities and we suggest partnerships for each other. The other thing that I would add to that is make sure that you have budget set aside to consistently and constantly invest in yourself and invest in your learning. So have the business coach, work with, a time management coach like me or with Katrina in terms of marketing to mums. Go out and actually invest in continuing to learn, because the minute you stop learning is the minute your business will stop growing.
I agree, and I think that there is something, that a magic switch that happens when you actually physically invest money in someone, that you keep yourself accountable. It does keep you accountable. So the accountability group is great, and that's something that we do with friends or with people in business, and there's no money exchanging hands. But when you pay someone to teach you something or to help you do something, you hold them accountable as well. And that way, both of you are accountable, and it actually works. It just works really well. I couldn't agree with you more. When I got a business coach myself, it dramatically made a difference. So, okay, girls, I'll start one at a time. Kate first. first thing I have to say is this is Kate's new book, which has been launched, I think, today. Is that right, Kate?
Yeah, it hit the bookstores yesterday, but it's I'm just launching it every day.
Yeah, well, there you go. You can do that in this kind of environment. So I would encourage any of you to read it. It's called Me First, The Guilt-Free Guide to Prioritising You. Kate is obviously the guru when it comes to time management and how to structure your life. This is a book worth reading. Kate, if anyone wants to contact you directly or to buy the book, what's the best way to do that?
So contact me either through my website, timestylers.com,
Yep.
or you can send me an email, kate@timestylers.com.
Yep.
Or the book is available in all good bookstores. It's online, Kokia, Amazon, so forth. So I'll hold it up, but mine will be backwards. Please reach out to me. I'm very, very excited to be launching this book. It is broken into 3 parts. It has a section on some of the crazy stuff we do and think as women and working mums, like imposter syndrome, mother's guilt, judgment, constantly saying yes. The second part is structured around my framework that will walk you through exactly how to get back your own 30 plus hours of lost time a month.
Amazing.
And I promise you it. And then the third part is a section around how to build and realise your amazing, audacious goals, because now you've got those 30 hours back. I want you to do something incredible for yourself, not just fill that time with an extra 30 hours of email.
Yeah,
so
beautiful. That's really beautiful advice. Okay, and Katrina, how do people get hold of you if they want to get to find a little bit more, or maybe use you as a consultant or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd suggest either of my websites. So there's marketingtomums.com.au or katrinamccarter.com, or otherwise send me an email. I'm Katrina with a K at marketingtomums.com.au, and would love to hear from you.
Thank you both so much for coming on. I would have to say, for any viewers out there who do have a business where you think you could collaborate, here are 2 women that you should get in contact with. They've got lots of influence and they also have fantastic content. So it's been an absolute delight having both of you on the show today. Thank you so much and good luck with everything. And I expect to see you in lights as soon as this shutdown is over. But thanks both of you for coming.
Thanks, Jules.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more.